This podcast contains some strong language and some stories involving violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Warfighters United, where veterans' voices are heard and transitional resources and programs provided. This podcast is brought to you by the VFW, a service organization that provides our service members and veterans resources and representation throughout the nation. They also enhance community support and the camaraderie we all miss being in the military. Join the VFW today and make a difference. Today in studio, we have Major General Tom S. Jones. Sir, welcome to Warfighters United. How's everything going?
Everything is going well, Eric. It's good to hear your voice again. I haven't seen you for a while, and it's good to hear you. I'm glad to be with you.
Yeah, and so I really was excited to have you on today to not only highlight, your 7-day transitional program, Outdoor Odyssey, but everything that you've done over the last 50 years when it comes to our servicemen and women. You joined, this year is the 50th year of Vietnam ending and the 60th year of when it began. You joined the military in 1969. What was that like being a commander over in Vietnam?
Well, I joined the Marine Corps solely because I had a friend that joined the Marine Corps while I was in college. He asked me to go with him, and I almost did, but I didn't. So when I got out of the college, I joined the Marine Corps first for 2 years, and then because I was a college graduate, I became a lieutenant. And my first duty station was as a platoon commander in Vietnam, and those were tough times. And of course, I came back from Vietnam when the height of all the protests and whatnot. So it was a very difficult time for our country. Racial problems were very significant at that time too. So it was one of the dark ages for our country at that time. Yes.
Well, I tell you, but if it wasn't for our Vietnam vets that we have across the nation today, our military veterans and our service members would never get the respect that they deserved. Like we did, because of what happened in Vietnam and the way the country was back then. We owe a debt of gratitude to not only you, but every other Vietnam veteran in America. And then, so after Vietnam, you ended up going to the Persian Gulf. What was that like?
Well, I stayed in the Marine Corps as an infantry officer, and I had probably about 15, 16 years in the Marine Corps when I was a battalion commander in the Persian Gulf, and I spent almost a year in the desert. I went over right at the start when Iraq went into Kuwait, and I didn't come back until the following spring. And so, that was a really good time for America, I think, because we did something that was right, and I think that obviously I learned a lot as an infantry officer, and I had a really good unit, and I think the America had a lot of success at that time. Unfortunately, in retrospect, if we could have gone on and finished Iraq at that time, we probably would have avoided all the problems we had in Iraq in the last 20 years.
And speaking of that, over the last 20 years, you have dedicated the last 20 in not only doing a 7-day transitional program that is available to any veteran across the United States at no cost to them, Outdoor Odyssey. So what was the catalyst for you starting this 7-day transitional program?
Well, I didn't start Outdoor Odyssey as for the 7-day program. I was a troubled kid, and if I hadn't been helped by a mentor, I probably wouldn't even finish high school, let alone going on to college and become an officer in the Marine Corps. I spent 2 years with the British Commandos as a young guy, as a captain. I came back with a dream to start a camp to help children through mentorship and people who were challenged and maybe facing educational failure through a mentor. And that was the first signature mission for Outdoor Odyssey. I spent my first 7 years at Outdoor Odyssey as the founder and executive director on active duty. And fortunately enough, my son came on board to help me. And then if he hadn't come on board, I wouldn't have been able to stay in the military. But after 9/11, I stayed 4 more years, longer than I'd planned to. So after I got out of the Marine Corps, I helped the guys start a transition program for veterans, for catastrophically wounded veterans, warriors who were getting out, mainly just Marines at that time. And since then, we've gone to support all services. But the more we learned about mental fitness and mental health, my whole career in the Marine Corps, Suck It Up was a strategy for mental health. And I learned through sitting eyeball to eyeball, kneecap to kneecap with hundreds of warriors how wrong we were. So we enlisted the support of several mental health professionals, some of whom I had worked with on active duty. And the more we learned, the more we got into trying to build an apparatus, a week-long session that would not only give the individuals skills in building team and also building plans, but more importantly, coming to grips with stress-related issues that dominate the landscape in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And so that's what we've done. And this next week will be our 93rd week-long session. And next week, we not only now have warriors coming up, but because some of the educators in the local Western Pennsylvania area saw the impact on kids taking the lessons from the warrior program to schools, we are now including educators, first responders, and community leaders in these week-long programs. So we're now taking these skills we've learned about mental fitness well beyond the borders of Outdoor Odyssey.
Yeah, and I've been, I've been to numerous of your camps, and I tell you what, over the last 10 years, I've seen some big changes when it comes to the mental fitness. What are some of the things that program provides? I know that you guys started doing Tai Chi, you started doing yoga, over a decade ago, you built a tree house to, Pete Nelson built a tree house for you on Tree Masters to be able to provide some comfort. What all is offered at those programs?
Well, the main thing we offer the program, it's not so much that we offering. We do use yoga and Tai Chi and mindfulness and meditation, even art therapy. But the key thing is teaching everybody that comes up there about neurobiology, what is the physiology and anatomy, and how if you know how your body works, why do these exercises like yoga and meditation and mindfulness and Tai Chi, why do they work? And if you know how they work and you are disciplined and you got somebody to hold you accountable to that discipline, you can really improve your mental fitness and then correspondingly reduce your mental health problems. So the three outcome objectives now that we use for the warrior program, and I say warrior program, that means Simplify Odyssey, but as I said just a couple minutes ago, it's not only a warrior program now, it's an educator program, it's a first responder program, it's a community leader program, but warriors dominate the landscape for participants. But we've also taken these skills now to all the kids we do in our mentoring program, and so we teach them about how the body works, how the triune brain works. And when I say triune brain, a brain, of course, has more than three parts. But if you learn about the reptilian brain, the emotional brain, and thinking brain, you learn how these skills of Tai Chi and yoga and mindfulness and breathing and meditation will, in fact, widen your window of tolerance and raise your heart rate variability, then you're going to be less susceptible to the ravages of stress. And quite frankly, you're going to have a hard time being successful building team, and you're going to have a hard time having success in setting goals and building plans if you can't regulate your day-to-day stressors. So that's our priority now, Eric, and we've had a lot of success, and that's why we're now in league with a prominent psychiatrist. We're actually certifying mental fitness and resiliency trainers. I've got 6 already certified. I've got 5 we're going to test for next week. So at the end of next week, I could have as many as 11 certified mental fitness and resiliency trainers, and we're trying to get these into schools. And obviously, if you have a person learn this young in life and they can practice these things, unlike physical fitness, which is linear, that means that if I practice fitness every day, I'm going to get better at the end of the week. Mental fitness is not linear because stressors will enter in your life all the time and sometimes derail you. But you've got to be able to find a practice that will work for you and follow the tenets of what it does to your reptilian brain, your emotional brain. And when the guys and gals learn that, then their exercises become more meaningful because they know if I practice this stuff, I'm going to get better. I'm going to be able to handle the stresses of life a lot better. Doesn't mean we're not going to have stresses in our life, because you can't keep stress out of life, but you can learn tools to actually handle your stressors. And this next week is going to be one of the largest courses we have, and we do 5 a year. We did six a year for a while. Now we're down to 5 a year because it's just too difficult to do 6 a year with everything goes on, because our main focus in the summer is programs for kids, and they come from all over America for that as well. But next week's going to be one of our largest sessions, and the fortunate thing about doing it in the summertime is you can do it, a lot of stuff outside, and then you've got nature to as an additive way, as a way to learn how to handle your stressors and whatnot. So we're really looking forward to next week's session, because the summer session is always probably one of the best of the year.
Well, I tell you, I've been over there in the summer, I've been out in the winter, and you have a lot to offer up there. You not only do, all of that mental health training and teaching the reptile brain and all those kind of things, but you also have a high ropes course, you have a zip line, and so explain to me and maybe our audience of what the ropes course, why you built that indoor ropes course in the first place.
Well, most of the high adventure stuff we originally built for the kids. What we do is we identify kids who are at risk of failing school, and we train high school juniors and seniors to be mentors, and then they are mentored by a parent we call umbrella mentors. And we bond the mentor with the kid, and then the mentor will mentor that kid through the course of the academic year, working on objectives set by an educator. All of our kids come, mentors and kids come to camp by recommendation of educators. And we use shared adversity. When you capitalize the shared and we lowercase the adversity is not nearly as significant if it's shared by somebody else. And so all those things like the high ropes course, the climbing, rappelling, the zip line, we have an obstacle course, we have a reaction course, where you go through events that you can only do together, and it forges a bond between the mentor and the child. And when the warriors come, building self-respect and building dignity and getting over fears of height and things of that nature are always good. I don't care what age you are. And it's good for team bonding. So a team leader comes up, and he's a veteran. He's got 2 or 3 people in his team. Going through these exercises and bonding with your comrades and whatnot. You even mentioned when you did the introduction how camaraderie, we miss camaraderie a lot when we get out of the military. The fact of camaraderie and teamwork in the military buffers a lot of the folks that already have stress problems when they come in the military. But all those high adventure events, Eric, are to forge a bond between teammates that come up and do it together, and also from a leader standpoint and his team members or whatever. Not only if they're warriors or their kids, but most of the high adventure things were built even before we were doing warriors, but they're really, really, really compatible to warriors, because I don't care how old you get, you're a former warrior, zip line, climbing, rappelling, those are exciting things to do, and you show that warrior spirit. And the warrior spirit really allows you to tackle problems, because that's what we do in the military. We tackle problems.
We solve problems.
Sometimes when you get out of the military, you start thinking you can't tackle problems anymore. Those type of things show people that, hey, you've still got that warrior spirit. You can tackle almost any problem, especially if you do it with teammates. And so if a guy comes out, it's not uncommon for a warrior to come up there and he or she may have isolated himself for 2 or 3 years. A lot of times guys come up and hadn't even got out of the house for 2 or 3 years. They come up and they form teammates for life. And I realize I can still be a warrior even if I'm a civilian. And then we talk to them about important things, Eric, that our country's built upon, the Constitution, and we tie their life desires to the preamble of the Constitution, and we encourage them to. One of the there's 8 action verbs in the preamble. There's only one sentence in the preamble, but it's for Americans. It doesn't say we Marines or we soldiers. It says we the people.
Yes, sir.
If you can get one of these participants to realize that I've got a responsibility to my nation, and they form a goal for what they're going to do in life based on one of those action verbs and the object thereof, then you form a team, and the team holds them accountable. And if you feel good about yourself, you're doing something for America, then you've got a much better chance to have a good mental state, and you can tackle things with a warrior mindset. That means small things that maybe derailed you before are not going to derail you when you got somebody helping you, calling you, hey, come on, you can do it, Eric. You can do this, Eric. We can do it together, you know?
Yes, sir.
As opposed to sitting in Michigan somewhere and trying to think you've got to do these things all by yourself.
And I agree with that completely, because, you know, there's so many veterans out there that do feel like they're alone or by themselves. And, you know, I'll be the first one to say that I've been there. And luckily, I made it through the darkness, and I started doing something. And it was the help of your program as well, and the help of you being one of my mentors throughout the years to propel me to push forward. And, you know, it's funny, we were talking about the high ropes course. I was just with Michelle Rudzitis, and when she did the high ropes course, you know, of course, Michelle was blown up. She lost a leg. And she thought when we bring her down to that program and she got to meet you and she got to go through the 7-day course there, when she actually got up and started doing the high ropes course, she was amazed of what she could do that she didn't think that she couldn't do.
Michelle's a good example. In fact, I pray for Michelle every day of my life, you know, and she's one of the gals that I draw inspiration from, because she not only had lost a leg, but she had some very, very graphic wounds on her body, you know, and when Michelle first came, she talked about she was sitting in a restaurant with a date, and the guy found out she had lost a leg, and he was intimidated by her. He left, you know. But Michelle's now got a changed life, and I think that programs where you start learning about what you can do, even though you've got some bad licks in life. Michelle's one of those people. It's a good example of what you can do when you come together and you form a plan and you got teammates to help you.
Right, and using SMEAC, situation, mission, execution, admin, logistics, you know, to create a plan.
That's right. If we can attack objectives through SMEAC, we can certainly attack American problems through SMEAC, Eric. That's for sure. You're exactly right. You're right.
And so maybe you could explain. So we talk about team building, and you know, so when a veteran comes down to Outdoor Odyssey, and you know he gets into his team, it's 3 to 4 people. You know, it's kind of small, but they create a bond that's like no other. After that week is over, it's not just a bond that lasts that week. And so when we talk about that, Dan Pultz, he taught me vault, which value, accepted, understood, love, and trusted. Right. And I always loved his saying. He said, have you vaulted your wife today?
Yeah.
And the first thing comes to mind is like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
But I still use that on a daily basis. And what I love about your program is that no matter when you come and you go through the course, that's a lifelong course that if you want to be a part of it, it creates a lifelong bond between the mentors and the mentees. Well,
I tell you, Eric, you know, we say this, it's not cliche. I'm the founder of Outdoor Odyssey. I've never drawn a cent from Outdoor Odyssey, but you couldn't pay me as much as what Outdoor Odyssey's given me. It rivals my experience as a Marine. But when you come to Outdoor Odyssey for 1 week or whatever, you're a lifetime member, and you can come back, and you'll never be homeless. All you have to do is say, I'm coming. I've got 3 guys coming next week, and all they do is tell me they're coming. They may be sleeping in a cabin. They may not be in the Yosemite Lodge, but you've always got a place at Outdoor Odyssey, and that gives a person a lot of comfort when you know you can come back. I mean, I know you, Eric, you've been up to Outdoor Odyssey probably 10, 15 times, whatnot over the years.
Yes, sir.
And I think you've always got a home at Outdoor Odyssey, and I hope Michelle does too. You talk to her next, you remind her of that fact, because I reminded her of that fact, that you've always got a place at Outdoor Odyssey. That gives someone a great comfort when you're part of a team that has got permanency to it. Okay?
Yes, sir. And, and on the other note, people to hold you accountable, right? Just because we go through the program and we go back to our home state or wherever we're from, that doesn't mean the communication is cut off. And numerous times, people have called me from Outdoor Odyssey, just asking me how I'm doing, what's going on. And I've always appreciated the fact that if I ever needed something, I know I can count on Outdoor Odyssey, just like everybody else.
Stand with those who served. Join your local Michigan VFW, where veterans find support, purpose, and community. Learn more at vfwmi.org. That's vfwmi.org.
Well, and I appreciate all the work you do in spreading the gospel, Eric. And if anybody's listening to this podcast, if you're in a dark place or you need, we can always get you some way into Western Pennsylvania for a session of Simplify Honesty. If we're out of sync of a session, you're in danger close, and you're really having a difficult time, we can get you connected with somebody. We have people now everywhere. Like you said, Eric, we've done this 93 week-long sessions. We've got people all over America. And so we can find somebody close to you. And if I had somebody who had trouble in Michigan, okay, I would call Eric Calley and others are close to him to pick up the phone and make contact with them. So make sure you folks are listening to this now. You give a call, give a contact. If we can't get you into a session, if it's immediate need, we'll find somebody to help you.
So you not only provide that course for veterans, but you also have a military youth camp. Can you tell me a little bit about the military youth camp? Because I know there's a lot of veterans or service members, men and women, who have kids that are 7 to 12 years old. And
well, we about 3 or 4 years into Simplify Odyssey, we realized the trauma imposed on military families. Of course, I was on active duty my first 4 years of Iraq and Afghanistan, so I already knew the relentless schedule for deployment schedule, what it was doing to families, having been there myself. And so we started realizing that we were doing major impact on the families just by the stories from the warriors coming to Outdoor Odyssey. Then we went through Superfly Fun, and we started the Superfly Kids Camp. And this summer was our 13th year for the Superfly Kids Camp. It's now called the Military Kids Camp because now we've gone beyond Superfly Fun, and we bring in any warrior that's been to Superfly Odyssey. They bring their kids up. I know your kids have been up. In fact, I even asked them this year, Eric, if your kids were there. I didn't get there to Wednesday of the week, and I was disappointed that your kids weren't there this summer. But in any event, kids come from all over the place, and we try to do the same thing that we do with Simplify Odyssey. We do on a modulated scale. We're trying to give the kids a fun adventure, but we're trying to give them skills too to deal with to be more successful at school and be more successful on the home front. And obviously, we don't give them the same stress-related material we give the warriors, but we still do regulation-type drills and stuff like that that will help kids deal with stressors and whatnot. And we bring a bus up from Camp of June, the bus up to the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico, and to pick up the kids from Northern Virginia. And I pledged to the kids, at one point we had over 150 kids in that 1 week camp, and we had much less than that this year, but we had 4 counselors this year, summer counselors, college students, that were all Marine Corps dependents, and they go to college now in various places, but they all grew up in a simplified kids camp. One kid came this summer, had 10 summers at Outdoor Odyssey.
Wow.
And so that camp is designed to take pressure and give we know that being a military kid is really a lot of stress-related issues because your parents are deployed a lot, and there's an awful lot of stress during deployment, but there's an awful lot of stress between deployments. And so our idea is just to try to mitigate that, ameliorate that to the degree possible, and give these kids skills that will make them more successful in school.
And, what's amazing is you don't stop there, sir. You also provide mentoring across overseas in Africa, Uganda, and some other places. Can you tell us a little bit about what you offer over there and how you're making a difference?
Well, several years ago, when I got out of the Marine Corps, I worked for an organization called the Institute for Defense Analysis, and almost all my projects as a former Marine were dealing with Iraq and Afghanistan. I was in School of Infantry in Camp Pilgrim, and I met a guy named Frank Dioria who had a company in 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines as a captain in a very, very significant battle. And I was interviewing him for this Institute for Defense Analysis, and after the interview was over, he said, "Tell me about Outdoor Odyssey." He'd seen a story about Outdoor Odyssey in a magazine, Leatherneck magazine, that caters to Marines. As it turns out, Frank is married to a gal from Uganda, and she was the first child, one of the first touring choirs that came from Uganda many years ago, and she's part of the African Children's Choir as a child. And so he brought the founder to Outdoor Odyssey 5 years later, and the founder asked me if I could help them build a mentoring program in Uganda and Kenya. And I went to Africa, Uganda, Kenya, South Africa, Swaziland, Sudan, and we started a mentoring program, official mentoring program in Kenya and in Uganda. And all these kids, for the most part, were orphans, and they became part of the choir. And the African Children's Choir would support them all the way through college if they could pass the test to go to college. Unfortunately, many of the kids weren't passing the test. And so the founder of African Children's Choir, one of the most phenomenal people I've met in my life, Ray Barnett, affectionately called Daddy Ray, he was trying to build a mentoring program. He wanted to build a mentoring program that raised the percentage of people that passed the test so they could go to college. And of course, you go to college, it's going to give you more opportunities for being successful in life. And so we started a mentoring program 10 years ago, and I've made several trips to Africa. We've had African young men and women on the camp as counselors and trying to learn the skills so they could take them back to Africa. And I just made a trip to Africa in November, and we're trying to take now some of these skills we've learned in mental fitness to Africa so because all of these kids have been traumatized in Africa. So that mentoring program is very, very rewarding. And hopefully it will continue success just like our program in America.
Yeah, I remember the last time I was at Outdoor Odyssey, and you had a young fella there that was playing the drums. He was doing the beat, and we all stood in a huge circle, and it was a lot of us veterans with a whole bunch of kids, and we were passing an imaginary ball.
Yeah, that was Collins. Yeah.
I tell you what, he played the drum like nobody I've ever heard.
He's something else. Hey, see, he was a Maasai, Eric. He lived out, it was a Maasai, the tribes, and that's out in the hinterland, out in no man's land in Africa. He never knew his father. His mother left him when he was born. He lived in a village. His grandmother raised him, and he became part of the African Children's Choir about 7 years old. And he spent about a year and a half touring America as an 8-year-old. And he stayed with the program and went through school and then went to Nairobi for school. And I met him in 2018. And he and one of his friends, Peter, They spent 4 different summers at Outdoor Odyssey as interns trying to learn these skills so they could take them back to Africa. So when I went back to Africa this last November, this individual, Collins, he put together a team of six people to come to Uganda, and we taught the high school kids in Uganda these same skills we teach at Outdoor Odyssey. And later on in February, March, and part of April, he toured England with a choir, and he served as one of the chaperones for that. But he's got a lot of energy, and a lot of that energy, he's used a lot of those skills he learned at Outdoor Odyssey. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I know from my own personal experience some of the successes that I've seen out there, not only my own, but with many other veterans. And I was just talking to John Safranos the other day. I know he's coming out next week, and he's super excited to come back and be a part. What else about Odyssey sets it aside from every other transitional course, sir?
Well, I think that you've already hit upon it. You know, once you become part of Outdoor Odyssey, you got a lifetime membership, and once you have a team leader, he's going to stay with you. It's just not, you don't come for a week. This is you come to sign up to become a team member and be held accountable for life.
Yes, sir.
And when you have a lifetime membership, Dr. Fines is a good example. I don't know how many times Dr. Fines has been to Outdoor Odyssey, but he called me and asked me if he could come. I said, Doctor, I told you before, you don't have to ask me if you're going to come. You just tell me you're going to come. I can't pay your way. You're going to get there yourself. But he not only is coming, but he's bringing an associate going to go through the course all week. And this is the gal he works with. I don't even know Eric much about her other than the fact that Dr. Shafarna says she could gain a lot by the experience. And so that's the real value, I think, of the experience. It's different than you may want to go to be entertained or something like that. But I would say, from my perspective, and of course, I don't want to disparage any other course. All people who work with veterans, they've got big heart and whatnot. But we try to focus on the things that will make the individual more successful, and then we will stay with you. And I ensure that we don't ever have a team leader that doesn't stay with the people and follow up with his people. And I mean follow up for life with those people. Dan was a good example. Dan Fultz, who you mentioned, if you came back to Outdoor Odyssey now, Eric, you'd be surprised to find out that we no longer have a big building called Sohale. The big building is now called the Vault.
Really?
And on the front of the Vault, there's a great big plaque that talks about the Vault, valued, accepted, understood, loved, and trusted. And inside, when we dedicated it last August, we got a story about Dan inside there, and so that building now is called the Vault. And everybody comes up there. I don't care if they're a warrior. I don't care if they're a munchkin. I don't care if they're a munchkinette. I don't care if they're who they are. They're going to see valued, accepted, understood, loved, and trusted is a part of our mantra. And we make sure that everybody that works at Outdoor Odyssey has the same ethos, same mindset. And those are the things we're going to live by.
Yes, and what I love too is you guys set attainable goals, not long-term goals, but near goals that they can accomplish to start building other goals. And what I really love about it is at the end of the week, everybody gets a one-on-one, knee to knee, eyeball to eyeballs, sitting with you, sir, to not only hash out that plan, but to make sure everything that you write down is attainable. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I'm fortunate enough as a founder, I get a chance to interview every single participant. This next week's going to be a big challenge because this next week we're going to have almost 40 participants, and that means we'll have to start interviews on late Wednesday, and all day Thursday I will interview, and then part of Friday, and I get a chance to talk to them about three things. I talk to them about their near-term goals, but I talk to them about their strategy for handling stress. I talk to them about their team, and I talk to them about their ability to set goals that are attainable. It doesn't do any good to have this pie-in-the-sky goal that you're never going to set. I'm not saying you can't expand and do more elaborate things later on. But if you don't get near-term goals, you'll never hit midterm goals, and you never make long-term goals.
Yes, sir.
A lot of times people will put down all these lofty things they want to do that may sound good, but when you talk about goal setting, you talk about SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-laden. Of those 5 things, 3 of the 5 are objective, 2 of them are subjective. Attainable and realistic are subjective, but specific and measurable and time-laden are all very objective, where you have to put it down specifically what you're going to do. And so when somebody sits down in front of me and they say they're going to do something, if I myself don't understand how you're going to do it, then I think that person's going to have a hard time doing it. So my sitting down with Eric Calley or anybody else is, I'm going to try to give you the benefit of my experiences, but you're going to try to give me the assurance that I feel good about what you're doing. If I don't feel good about what you're taking on, I mean, it's my obligation to tell you that. I'm not going to try to make you feel good. I'm going to try to make you feel successful. And so I'm fortunate enough that at my age, I can still sit down with people like yourself, and we can form plans, and then we got a better chance of succeeding that plan if we can write it down and we can talk about it. Then we can hold the team leader accountable to hold you accountable.
It's kind of like the pyramid of success, right?
It's definitely same thing we do in the Marine Corps. You have a fire team, you have a squad, you have a platoon, you have a company, you have a battalion, and then if you got somebody to hold you accountable that you know you can count upon, not just somebody that's going to dictate or be an autocrat, but somebody that really cares about you. We generally have a team leader who's got 2 or 3 team members, and that's manageable. Of course, we got a lot of team leaders like Dan Pulitz, who had so many teams that he had people calling him every day of his life.
Oh, yes, sir. I was one of those at one point in time.
Yeah, you were one of those at one point in time. And here I am now, having done this 93 times. I'll get 5 or 6 emails every single day from somebody that, is either give me an update. I just got a call right before you called from Rafael Sandana. Well, he was in the program, 12 years ago, for crying out loud. But he still comes, and he came to our fundraiser 2 years ago, and he was one of the guys that Dan Pulitz was really close with when Dan Pulitz died on the 22nd of November 2 years ago. Raphael he took it really, really hard, like a lot of people did, myself included,
Yes, sir.
But that's why it's so good, because if you don't miss certain people and they're gone, and there's been something absent in your life and whatnot. And while I miss Dan, every day I probably think about, I wish I could call Dan. Every day I also thank God that I had the opportunity to work with Dan so many years.
And I thank God that I had the opportunity to not only be a part of his team, but to eat up his knowledge on everything that we learn about. Like, everything that you taught at that course, he would relate it to each person in a different way. Yeah. But in such a demanding manner to where we understood it and we knew what we had to do. I mean, he definitely changed a lot of lives, just like every other counselor that is there. Yeah,
no doubt about that. Dan's, we got a legacy pavilion up there now. It's the sports pavilion, and Dan is on one of the pillars of the sports pavilion, so his legacy lives.
So you're coming up on your 93rd course this next week, and you said you had 40 participants. So I know you go to outdoorodyssey.org, but what's other ways to try to be involved in this program, or try to, if you're a veteran out there and you're looking to be a part, how can you go about doing that, sir?
Well, I think it's just go to the website and make contact and say, hey, I want to help. We have team leaders coming from all over the nation. We had Jerry Behrens was a battalion surgeon in Vietnam, and Jerry Behrens flew himself every time from Casper, Wyoming to, and Paul Pluff came from New Hampshire, and so if a guy wants to come, Gunny Harden, now lives in Chicago. He drives from Chicago. So we have people from everywhere. And obviously, if a guy can't make the trip and can't walk away from work, he can say, hey, consider me an asset. And if you want me to help mentor a guy or a gal, that you may have a guy comes from my part of the country, and I can help mentor that guy. I can at least talk to you about the goals that they're working on. So there's always some way if a person genuinely wants to, and that's important, genuine. If a person's genuine and really wants to help, there's any number of ways we can have him, because there's always more people in need than we have people that are prepared to help people. There's always, so if somebody wants to help, just give a look on the website, send a note in to outdoorodyssey.org and email at outdoorodyssey.org, and I'll guarantee you they'll get it off to me if it's pertaining to Simplify Odyssey, and you can rest assured that I may not get back to them immediately, but I'll get back to them in a couple, 3 days. And we've had a lot of, so I got a guy come in as assistant team leader who was one of my guys years ago in the Marine Corps, and he heard about this, and he's going to come up and sit down as an assistant team leader. Of course, nobody can be a team leader unless they're assistant team leader a few times, and so he's going to come up, and he may find out he doesn't like it. He may be too tough for him. Who knows? I don't really remember a lot about the guy. I could identify him, but I don't remember a lot about him. He was a young major when I was a major general, so I obviously didn't have day-to-day actions with him. But he heard about me through another guy, and so that happens all the time, Eric. So if somebody wants to make a difference with veterans, there's always more need than we have people that want to genuinely get involved. Not just to make a token effort, but invest themselves in somebody else. Because there's nothing more important than being a teammate or a mentor to somebody in need. We don't need. We got plenty of course, hunting. We got tons of hunting opportunities and golf matches and stuff like that. Those are all helpful. But what we need is there's opportunities for somebody to sit down and talk about your plan for life. Talk about your stressors. Talk about how you're dealing with those things that are weighing you down. And after the golf tournament's over, after the hunting trip is over, those things still exist if we don't have people that will help you with those type of things. That's what our goal is at Outdoor Odyssey.
Yes, and sir, that is a well worth goal. And I mean, the thousands of veterans, the thousands upon thousands of kids that you've helped over the last 20 years. And so if you're out there and you're listening to this podcast and you want to make a difference, you can go to outdoorodyssey.org. Any donations are always, helps with facilitating everything that General Jones is doing. Sir, it's been a great pleasure to have you on Warfighters United. Any last save rounds that you want to get off before we hem this up?
No, great hearing your voice again, Eric. It's been a while since we've seen you. I'd like to see you visit. We had a lot of good time together since the first time I met you in Camp Pendleton many years ago. So I applaud you for what you're doing, Eric. And God bless you. And hope I get a chance to see you in the not too distant future. Good to go?
Yes, sir. Good to go. And if you're listening and you want to, hear more about this podcast, you can go to warfightersunited.com. That's our webpage. Everything that we talk about on this podcast is going to have a hyperlink on there, from service dogs to transitional programs to educational benefits, anything veteran orientated. Or you can go to Warfighters United Podcast on Facebook. And if anybody wants to get into this program, they can always email me at warfightersunited@gmail.com. Thank you very much, sir, for being on Warfighters. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy that beautiful 500 acres over in Boswell.
God bless you, Eric. God bless.
All right. Semper Fi, sir.
God bless your family. Hoorah.
Hoorah.
To speak with Eric Calley and Warfighters United, you can email him at eric@warfightersunited.com or call 517-699-0111.